Welcome back to Spirit, Spells and Magic. Well, we've come to the last Sabbath of the year in the Southern Hemisphere. It's Litha, which is the summer solstice. The summer solstice, or midsummer as it's also known, is a time when the axial tilt of the earth is at its closest to the sun. There are more hours of daylight at this time than any other time of the year, making it pretty much the longest daylight hours of the year. Now, the summer solstice in the Southern Hemisphere is on the 22nd of December, roughly around the time they're having Yule in the Northern Hemisphere, and celebrating Christmas. Well, yes, we celebrate Christmas here too. We can't go changing Christmas, but we also celebrate it in summer. And we celebrate Christmas just after the summer solstice. And generally in Australia, summer can often fall on pretty much the hottest days of the year. So I've got fond memories of air conditionings going and fans and the Christmas chicken and everybody eating and drinking and carrying on and sweating. And yeah, it was Australia's a lovely place to come and celebrate Christmas if you don't already live here and know what I'm talking about. But yes, we do dream of a winter Christmas, and we'd have to travel quite a distance to get one. But we have a summer Christmas. And first we celebrate Litha, or midsummer, summer solstice. So there are many different traditions that are celebrated around this time. So we're going to have a little look at ways that we can celebrate Litha in Australia. Now, the sun at pretty much all times of the year is treasured, and everybody worships the sun all the time, especially in pagan traditions. And that's why we find that there's many bonfires and fire festivals running during different times of the year to warm them up, as well as celebrate the heat. And at this point in the year, we've got the heat, so why not celebrate it? Now, in traditional times, it was midway through the harvest, and they wanted to make sure that they got a long harvest and that things would grow to the best that they could, because we're going to go into autumn soon and we need that food to last us through winter. Well, not us particularly, but back in the day. So they would have different things. They would banish evil spirits with different rituals and spells, as well as lighting bonfires and challenging each other to run across and jump over the fire. And try not to get your bottom burned. But the higher you jumped, the higher the harvest or the wheat would grow for the harvest. So there are a lot of different things that they did back in the day, but we're only going to do a couple of these. And we're limited living in Australia with what we can find of the old traditional times. Now, being Christmas, there's a lot of Christmassy items at the shops. So I decided to have a split altar like I normally do, and have a Christmassy Litha altar. We decided that we were going to start our Litha with some cooking, and it was chosen that we would have summer solstice cookies. Now, these require a bit of honey, but we went with maple syrup because it seemed to be a little less sticky when we go to roll the dough. I will put the recipe up as well, but it included flour and some brown sugar, and mixing that in a bowl with some butter, softened. Make sure it's softened because it's very hard to stir when it's hard. And I've enlisted the help of my daughter again to do this. Now, we added the maple syrup. It was about 60 mils. And we did try a little bit of the honey, but not as much as what the recipe asked for, because it was just way too sticky, we've found in the past. It required us to place the dough in the fridge for about an hour, so we went on and made something else, which I'll show a bit later. But once the dough came out, we were able to make shapes, and we chose a round shape for the sun, as well as we were deciding whether or not we make yellow suns or flowers for summer. We first put together the food colouring with the yellow food colouring with some icing sugar, and then place that over the top of the biscuits once they'd come out of the oven, and covering with yellow icing sugar really got us into that summer spirit, as well as my daughter putting on some M&Ms in orange and yellow into the centre. We were deciding on flowers in the end, and I got her to mix up some red food colouring, which she placed on either sides like a cross of the M&M to kind of make it decorated like a flower. We couldn't help ourselves and made some Christmas cookies as well. Next we moved on to our second summer solstice recipe, which was banana bread. And I'll pop the recipe up here also. But that consisted of 125 grams of butter, a cup of brown sugar, vanilla extract, 2 eggs, 1.5 cups of mashed banana as well, and maple syrup, 1 2/3 of a cup of self-raising flour, and a teaspoon of cinnamon. Once again enlisting my daughter's help to get all of the ingredients in and mixed up in the bowl. We had a lot of fun making banana bread. We thought that it was going to be quite a hard thing to do, but it turns out it was quite easy once you've got the instructions there. And we've also been told to use very ripe bananas that are almost going black. But we really didn't want to wait that long for bananas to go yucky brown, so we used them. They did have patches of brown on them, and you know what, in the end they worked fine. We did use 3 bananas. We weren't sure how many we'd need to fill that 1.5 cups, so we used 3 very ripe bananas, and they turned out perfectly. We also added a little cup of walnuts, which was in the recipe, but turned out she wasn't a fan of it. So if you've got small kids and they're not a fan of nuts, I'd leave them out, because really they didn't make much difference to it at all. But she had a lot of fun mashing up the banana, cutting it up, putting it into the bowl. Now, it wasn't as fancy as the food colouring and the painting of the gingerbread men and things like that, but she still enjoyed doing it. And as a fan of bananas, she enjoyed it once it was cooked as well. And it did help to add a little bit of maple syrup, another 60 mils I believe it was, we added to this banana bread recipe, and it turned out wonderfully. Now, definitely spray your silicone ware or any kind of loaf pan that you're using. Make sure you've got some baking paper in there, or if it's a silicone, definitely spray it with grease. They do say it's non-stick, but everything sticks in my experience. So definitely make sure you're oiling up your pans and your silicone trays as much as possible. Now we place that in the oven, 180 degrees Celsius, for exactly an hour, and it turned out fine. You could probably check on it a little bit more than what we did. Ours came out a little browner maybe than what most people like, but that's fine. It did look so delicious and tasted even better. So definitely worth making with the kids, whether it's summer solstice or not. Definitely get some banana bread happening. It never lasts long in this house. Now, many Sydney-siders would know that the weather this year has been awful, especially if you're trying to grow vegetables or really grow anything. We've had not much success at this stage with anything we've grown. It's coming along still, but a lot of it's stunted as the sun just hasn't been around. But we're hoping over the next couple of months we'll see a little bit more sprouting out, and hopefully some kind of a harvest before winter, if we're lucky. We still have hope for our witchy garden yet. But as it warms up, hopefully, we hope you have a lovely Christmas and a wonderful summer solstice, and a great start to the next year. And we'll be back with more Sabbats, more spirit spells and magic. Have a great day. Namaste.